All right, can you guys hear me?
Good to
Yay.
go.
So now we're finally live and we have good audio, hopefully on all three parts. So welcome. This is the Middle American Outdoors Fireside Chat, the weekly get-togethers, and trying to do it on Monday nights now to open up some more hunting time on the weekends for our guys as well as our guests and anybody that does get on and listen or chime into the live feed. Just a reminder, it is live, as you can see here. We've got YouTube live on our channel as well as the Facebook community chat page. It goes live there. So you can jump on, you can leave comments or questions for anybody that's on, and I try to keep up with them as we're talking. Well, tonight we have Ben on board. Jake is not here, he's not feeling well tonight. We've got Ben here, and then we've got a friend of American Outdoors, Matthew Reaves, on from Southern Pursuits. Let me just bring those guys up. Basically, I'm not sure what we missed in the beginning, but we're on here. This is week 6, and we've had just a cluster of errors so far. We're Fireside Chat. We're going to be talking about self-filming. That's why we have on this side over here Matthew Reaves from Southern Pursuit. He's a self-filmer, and been talking to him quite a bit, so I thought I'd bring him on to discuss the topic. And for guys that were just watching Ben talk, he was just catching us up on getting old and having some difficulty getting up in the tree lately. Talking about going to the blind game, maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do spot stock from now on.
Get that ground and pound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a pretty crazy weekend. You guys will see videos. No deer down, but I did the at least annual trip down the river in the kayak, and it's a rush. But what were you up to this weekend, Matthew, for hunting?
We had our first quote unquote cold front in Alabama come through, and it was also opening weekend of bow season for the rest of Alabama. So I was able to get on some of my private stands, and the deer really weren't moving. It was kind of strange. I thought they would be up on their feet eating a bunch of acorns on the ground. So I mean, I saw just a handful of deer. Didn't have really. I had one encounter with a spot that was inside 20 yards, but that was really the extent of my weekend. So trying to kind of recuperate and get ready to hit some Georgia public. I've got some quota hunts coming up in about 2 weeks, so trying to scout real hard for those.
And you've been hunting since September, right? You've just been hunting in local or neighboring states, basically.
Yeah, since September 12th, that's when Georgia opened, and their gun season just opened up on the 17th, so this weekend.
What was the non-resident tag that you had there?
That as far as the price or just everything it included?
Yeah, both of them.
So the price was $350. Now I get the souvenir hard license just to have it as reference later on. But I think I get 2 black bears, 2 turkeys, 12 deer, 10 of those, or 2 of those antlered, 4 on one side, and then 10 does.
Non-resident for $350.
Yeah, in Georgia, and then that's the same for Tennessee. But I don't think where I'm hunting I can shoot a black bear.
That's crazy. So anybody that's listening that's looking for an out-of-state bargain, I mean, that's a crazy bargain.
If you want to extend your season too, I know a lot of people. When does y'all season usually end?
Our bow season's September 1 to December 31 in Nebraska. Ben starts later.
Yeah, we start a month later, and then we get to go just a few days into January.
Okay, yeah, Alabama, we start on the 15th and go to the 10th of February. So it's pretty long. So my season's going to go from September 12th to the 10th of February. So trying to space out time and enjoy it, and try not to get burnt out too early.
Yeah, well, I think, we had David Babiak on here previously talking about the Maine black bear hunt. You're looking at, I mean, if you want to go on an out-of-state hunt, that Georgia, Tennessee out-of-state just sounds insane. I was telling Matthew, like, out of state for me, neighboring states, I've got Kansas and Iowa. So It
Them heavy
is
hitters.
right. I mean, you're in 350 just to put your hat into the draw. Like that's just a donation, basically.
Well, I've looked at putting in for Iowa, just haven't jumped the gun on that yet.
That's for one deer. I
Yeah,
mean,
big for a long time until
I
that
mean,
can happen.
you might be shooting a $900 doe. Yeah, it's crazy. But if I don't know if you guys missed in the beginning, if it was still muted, I introduced Matthew. He's with Southern Pursuit, and he's out of Alabama. Is everybody from Alabama? Or are you guys kind of from the area?
So everybody that kind of works with me, we're all from kind of northern central Alabama area.
Okay,
So
cool.
most of the guys I met in college, and we just kind of went from there. Decided to do this, and now we're here.
Yeah, cool. So the topic for tonight and then for several nights over the next few months is going to be, we're calling it self-filming 101. So obviously if you're on the channel, you're familiar with the concept or the fact that I self-film, and Ben on this side of the screen is now into self-filming, joining up with Middle American Outdoors. And then we brought Matthew on over here from Southern Pursuit as our expert guest on the concept, because
Yeah.
I get tired of hearing my voice, and I'm sure people get tired of hearing my voice. So we're always looking for somebody else to chime in, and it's cool just to see. I mean, you're a few more years into it than I am, so a different perspective. A disclaimer: the reason we got, you got us here at Middle American Outdoors, and you got Matthew over there, is instead of the big time pros, is we hope that this is a little more applicable to most people that might be listening. Everyday outdoorsmen have real jobs, not professional hunters, not professional videographers, not professional film editors. It's just can be really, I won't say really expensive because that'll turn people away, but it can be a really expensive hobby. It is a rather time consuming hobby. And so over the next several weeks, we kind of want to go over topics that we can talk through. Matthew has some really good stuff on his page already about gear that he uses for self-filming. I've got a gear dump coming out later this week of all the gear that I'm using this year for self-filming. And some of that stuff is better seen on video or picture. So we're going to try to keep these topics more to stuff applicable to audio. And talking through concepts more than showing you gear or techniques. So that being said, we thought first week we would just talk about why we do it, and kind of get Ben's experiences here in his first year already, just in the first month or two, just so you guys know that this is what it's like for everybody, and kind of why we got into it, why we think you should, and maybe we'll even get into a little bit of how we think you should go ahead and get started. So that being said, let's open up. First question for you, Matthew, is basically why did you get into it? Why did you start filming?
So the reason I started filming, grew up watching Monster Bucks TV, as most anybody did, and you see them lugging those cameras around, and thought it was really cool to actually show a deer hunt on camera. So I found myself very comfortable in front of the camera at a young age with my dad. He'd bring out the old silver Sony camera. I think about everybody in America had one, and taking the woods, looking around. I really just enjoyed sharing my story, telling my story, and then also to have the memories to look back on. Say 5 years down the road, you can pull out cassette tape or now an SD card or a hard drive and say, hey, look at this hunt. This is what happened. And, someday I may be able to show my kids that and be like, hey, well, there was Daddy, in his 20s doing the same thing he loved doing today back then. So really that's just a look back for me, and to actually show people what I do for fun and my passion.
Awesome. And you said your dad was into it. Does he still film?
No, he doesn't film. I think he was just taking it to kind of do the, just the dad role of it, trying to capture those memories before we could flip out a cell phone, and capture it out of your pocket, just trying to enjoy those moments and look back on them.
Yeah. Did he film himself before you started hunting?
No, he just kind of, brought it whenever I came along and just enjoyed doing that. So that was really the driving. He didn't grow up hunting really. When I came along was when he really got into it. And but since I've started filming, I'll film him occasionally, and sometimes he'll take a GoPro with him if he's feeling a little frisky.
He get into it because you had a passion for it, or?
Well, yeah, just hunting in general. That was just that's our thing that we do together. Ever since I was younger, he enjoyed it. He's a big turkey hunter, and when I came along, I think he just kind of jumped on it a little extra, and we kind of took off with it together.
Yeah, you can get out all them extra youth seasons and stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. I
Get
had
the
to pull
crack
the
at
gun
the
away
deer
from him.
first. Cool. That sounds kind of similar, Ben, over here. How about you? I mean, you did some of the classic cell phone, check this out stuff before, but
yeah, I bought some of the cheap action cameras and throwing a tactic cam on the bow and a little bit of it was for other organizations I worked with, to kind of help show our supporters what we were doing. That way they can kind of feel like they're in it. And then of course I had got a ton of kids, so being able to, like you said, Matt, is to record those moments and just have them to keep, for down the road and look back on. And also another reason that I kind of got interested in is last year I lost my first deer that I'd ever lost. And of course I didn't have it on camera, confident in my shot. Like, man, I really wish I had recorded that so I could look back on that and see what happened. And then this year, a couple weeks ago, I think we just released that video, didn't we, Matt?
Yep, that came out today.
I shot a couple. That it was heartbreaking. We was able to look back on it, and I was confident in what happened, but being able to look back on film and see that, it just really it modified how I was going to take my next step. And not having that camera, not having that footage, I'd have done it way different. Unfortunately I didn't recover that deer, but had I shot her a little deeper into my own property, I'm pretty confident I'd have found that deer. Yeah, that was a heartbreaker.
Mm-hmm.
But that's another aspect of filming that's real beneficial to hunters. There's a wealth of information you can get from that if you have it.
Absolutely. And we'll dive into that a little bit more on the why we think other people should do it. Disclaimer for Ben, I mean, it was definitely a kill shot. He didn't completely biff that doe. If anybody watched the video today, it was definitely a kill shot. And she probably didn't die too far away, judging by how close those coyotes were.
Yeah, it's probably only 150 yards from me.
What's predator game like where you're at, Matthew?
It's pretty tough. If you don't get them that night, some part of them's going to be eaten by the morning, typically. Yeah. And it also depends on what part of the state you're in. Where I'm at right now, I actually got a game camera picture the other day of the biggest coyote I've ever seen. Just walking through the field, just like he owns the place, And I actually found a fawn that was dead in one of my fields. I ended up making a field actually. It's just tough, anywhere you go really.
Yeah, it is super thick where Ben is, and where my brother Jake is at. If you don't get a deer if you don't pick that deer up, they're gonna get picked clean overnight, regardless of how big it is. I mean, there's tons of stories of bucks that get picked clean overnight.
We've had them within the hour get picked clean. Within 100 yards of the tree stand. It's crazy.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Did you happen to see, I don't know if you caught any of David's when he was on here. So he went on that Maine bear hunt, and he shot a black bear, and they didn't find it that night. When they went back in the morning, a front quarter had been, or a rear quarter maybe. I can't remember. Front or rear quarter had been eaten off by coyotes on a black bear.
Man.
The craziest part is they lost blood trail, and they picked it up like these small specks, and they followed the small specks, and they actually got to the bear, and they later on found the bear's actual blood trail. They just happened to pick up coyote bleeding from the fight with the bear, and it led them back to where the bear had died.
That's a story right there.
Yeah, crazy. But there's coyotes here. I'm not nearly as in as much trouble as Ben and Jake are. But yeah, just last night I was pulling camera cards, and there's a yearling running along on this river property, and about 3 coyotes come right down the same trail about 8 minutes later, probably chasing it down.
I had a picture. I've always seen it on Facebook, but I've never had it happen to me. But I had a picture of one of my top shooter bucks standing in the camera frame of my trail camera, and a coyote standing 10 yards in front of him, and they're just standing there together, not really bothered by each other. So I guess they knew who the dominant one was there.
Yeah, paying respect. So back to the filming side of it. Matthew already kind of answered this. Well, I guess I'll go back to why we do it. I should probably comment on why we do it at Middle American Outdoors. I don't feel like I often talk too much about why this started or why we do what we do, why I did what I did. But 3 years ago or so, no, it's 2 years ago now. I've been hunting for about 6 years. Really pretty much self-taught. Had one guy out in Scottsbluff, Jason Mosel, who really helped me to learn quite a bit. My stepdad and my brother Jake would answer a lot of questions as I was learning, but they're 6 to 8 hours away after we moved to eastern Nebraska. And so I really didn't have anybody helping me learn. I'm just going out on public land and just winging it, and then just trying to learn off of YouTubers. And I thought, well, I'll start a channel for the purpose of getting feedback. I'm going to self-film, and then I'm going to get criticism, hopefully, constructive criticism, hopefully. My experience was you couldn't really ask on social media because, what the hell is an adult asking questions about hunting for? And you just you just get trashed. And I mean, it was impossible, basically. Like, it's just embarrassing to see what people do, and it was really disheartening for me to go through it. But my drive to be into hunting and be in the outdoors was great enough that I just shook it off and kept trying to find a way. And this turned into a way for me to record, document, talk through my thought processes. Like, I would do like trail camera hanging, and it wasn't like trail camera 101. It was, I'm hanging trail cameras, and I'm going to tell you guys why I'm doing it this way, and hopefully somebody's going to chime in and be like, no, you should do it this way, or something along those lines. Or even like going to set stands or whatever, I would comment on why I was going to this stand, and hopefully that somebody would watch it at some time, or my brother and stepdad would watch it and chime in and give me some feedback. And then it kind of grew into a little bit of a community of people that were like me, like non-traditional adults trying to get into hunting, and you can feel safe here, and you can ask questions, and we're not going to berate you. I'm sure as heck not going to berate you for asking a question. Like, one that always sticks out in my mind, that right when I was starting this, a guy was on a Facebook page, and he posted a picture of a muley doe from behind, and he asked if it was a muley or a whitetail, and he just got destroyed on Facebook. And I'm like, man. So in essence, that's why we're here. We're hoping to fill that niche of people can feel safe and hopefully really feel comfortable knowing that I am like you. Ben and Jake are expert hunters. They grew up in the outdoors, and they're great hunters, and they know a ton about the outdoors, so they give our expert content, and I'm just the guy that's winging it and learning and piggybacking off of these guys' information and all that stuff. So that's why I got into filming. It's a little bit different. I actually got into it right after I killed my first deer, my first buck, with a bow on public ground here in eastern Nebraska. And it was one of those kayak trips. Like, I kayaked into his bedding and killed him in the morning. And one of the doctors I was working with asked me if I had any pictures of it or any video, and I was like, it didn't even cross my mind. He's like, do you not know how cheap a GoPro is? Like, just buy a GoPro, you could have had something. And I'm like, it never even crossed my mind until that moment. So then I started documenting shortly after that, the end of that 2018 season, all the way through the 2019 season, and then into 2020 here. And it's crazy how things have grown in 2 years. You know, like I caught the last few hunts of 2018, and then 2019, I actually documented every single hunt that I did, just so you could really see what it's like. And I know Matthew documents. You document most of your hunts.
Yeah, I hardly ever go to the stand without a camera. Now, if I want to kill a deer, I won't bring my camera because that's when the deer show up. But I try to bring my camera on every hunt. Yeah.
And do you produce content basically every time?
Try to, yeah. I usually try to piece something together. Actually working on something right now. Used to, I would only post if I killed something or whatnot. But as you said, there's people out there that want to see why you set up, where you set up, and kind of learn off of that. You know, sometimes I get tired of, you know, I'm like, hey, nobody wants to listen to me talk. I sure don't like listening to myself talk, especially when I'm editing. So trying to get better at that. But yeah, I document basically everything I do.
Absolutely. I mean, I've watched your stuff this year. That's part of the reason why I brought you on, because it's honestly, if you guys are watching in the Middle American Outdoors and you want to watch some other out-of-state, different perspective, listen to Matthew's southern accent, whatever. Yeah, you do makeup tips and everything I've seen.
Yeah,
so
you know, we get a little funny on there.
Get on his channel, and he does very similar to what I'm talking about, where we're not just producing kill videos. Not going to knock people that do that. I mean, that's their content. Our content choice is to show what hunting's like, whether, you know, if you think it's boring, you can watch another channel. I mean, the purpose here is to show this is what it's like. This is what the heartache looks like. I mean, how many shows are going to show killing or shooting a doe at 10 yards and not being able to recover it, and that heartache that Ben was going through over that, like being able to show that and show people like, man, this is real life hunting. This is what it's like, and then it makes it even more rewarding when things go well, basically. But we've talked on here before about one of our very first episodes was measuring experiences, not inches. And so being able to appreciate the actual just hunting. I watched one of your recent videos, Matthew, you're in there and a bunch of does ran right by in front of you. And just the reward that I know when you go on public land and you pick a tree and you're a hang and hunt guy, and you hang and hunt and you have deer walk within shooting distance of your tree. I mean, they don't walk within shooting distance of every tree. So when you do something like that, I mean, it's gratifying to know that.
Yeah, that's a successful hunt to me.
Absolutely.
Anytime, you know, that's just as satisfying, you know, as slinging an arrow sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't pan out that way.
Absolutely. That's how I gauge it too. If you see deer, especially deer within shooting range, even if they're not shooters, you're doing something right, obviously. The next question on the list then was how long you've been doing this, and you said you've kind of been in it since you were younger. How long has Southern Pursuit been producing?
Southern Pursuit has been around since 2000. I think I created the channel in October of 18. That was my last few years of college. I'd finally gotten a decent camera and jumped into it. But I'd say, as far as me personally, without my dad, I've been at it about 8 years, and those years prior to the 2018 were all very GoPro, you know, just getting what I can. You know, I wasn't diving full into it, but I was doing it on a budget and still being able to look back and see footage and say, hey, that was a neat hunt, you know, here and there. So really enjoying that through the process and to where I am now.
Yeah. And Ben's been this year.
Yeah.
He's equipped now and ready
just
to roll.
Just get my feet wet.
And you've been doing a little bit more like second person, third person, whatever you want to call it, filming.
Right. Yeah, I've only hunted for myself twice this year.
Yeah.
I'm to that point in my evolution of a hunter as I get just as much thrill out of seeing somebody else go through those beginner experiences, and you know that's a whole different aspect. and so it's being able to capture this through a lens is really, really interesting to me. I went out 2 days ago, and the tree just wouldn't work for a camera, and it was kind of nice just to sit there and just hunt and not have to worry about anything else. And I had a chance at deer and chose not to shoot them. Kind of wished I'd had a camera though, so I could sit there and video them. That's, like I said, that's a whole different aspect to it. It's just filming deer and being there with the deer, and it's, I don't know how to put it into words really what I'm trying to say, but I think what people can get, what am I trying to say here? There's a whole lot more to it than just killing deer. It's, if you want to get into filming, you don't even have to be a hunter. You want to go out and film deer or turkeys or whatever, just wildlife. It's rewarding. It really is. I'm really digging it.
Yeah, this weekend on that kayak trip, I didn't get a chance at a shooter, but it was a ton of fun. I had three deer within 7 yards of the tree I was in. I kayaked a mile downriver, hang and hunt on a piece of public I'd never set more than eyes on, from across the river. And we just kind of aerial scouted it, and me and Bryn kind of picked each other's brains on it, and then hang and hunt in there, and had 2 forks and a young doe within 7 yards, just walking right up to you while you got the camera on them. It was like, I have the second angle on me, and I'm shaking. It's like those 2 little bucks that were coming in, I'm like shaking like crazy, just because those 2 deer are within 7 yards of me, and I'm filming them, and they can't pick me out, and like, it's a rush. But let's see, here's a good one for you, Matthew. What was something like, Ben's really going through this right now, and Jake, and then I'm still going through it as well, and I'm sure you are. What's some like experiences that really opened your eyes to like, man, I wish I would have thought about that, or I didn't realize that was going to be such a big deal with the camera?
There's a handful of them that I could say, but the number one, I was thinking about this, and the number one I would say, or actually there's 2 things, is 1, don't be afraid to press record, and 2, shoot to edit. And that, we can get into that later in this series, but that's my biggest thing as a self-filmer. You're trying to tell a story to the viewer, to hold their attention, to keep them through the whole video. Say it's a 5-minute video or a 20-minute video. You want to hold their attention through the whole thing. So if that's, shooting B-roll the whole time, a bird or something, just don't be afraid to collect a bunch of footage, because I've done this countless times as I've gone on a hunt. I think about the footage that I got. I get home, I put my SD card in there, and none of that footage is on there because I didn't press record. You think it, but you press record, get the footage, and a lot of times I'll write a card. I had a card that I got from actually the Bone Collector. They're one of their film guys. He had a card that they made for him, said the do's and don'ts, checklist, kind of the shots you needed to get to make one of their production videos. So it's just basically a checklist. Say I've got the hunter coming out of the truck, climbing the stand, getting your gear ready, interview, all this stuff. And basically, you can either have a checklist on your phone, in your mind, but like I said, make sure you can be able to tell a story before you leave the tree, then go home and be able to edit it.
Good pointers. Really good pointers.
Yeah, I just made this comment a few days ago, didn't I?
Yeah.
It's tough. I've done it countless times. I go home and I'm like, oh yeah, I filmed that, and I didn't. I thought about filming it.
Yeah, I think, Ben, you're referencing your Arkansas trip, right?
Absolutely, 100%. It was my problem is I'm so new to it that I went down there for the sole purpose of filming that weekend, and I just got so caught up in the moment, just taking in that whole experience, selfishly for myself, because it was such an awesome time, that I forgot to push record, or I forgot to even get the camera out. You know, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. I'm like, oh shoot, I need to be filming this. So I pulled my phone out of my pocket just to get something, and it was just, I was kicking myself the whole way home. I was sitting there thinking, God dang, I should have filmed that, or I should have had the camera on me at that moment. But that's a huge hurdle for self filmers, though, to get in that mindset. You know, because for 30 years I've just been a hunter. And to grab that next gear, you know, I have to consciously think about it. And I like your tip about, you know, making a card, writing it down, have that visual.
Right. Yeah. And you know, we're not filming with tape. You know, we've got an SD card. You can, if it's 10 second clip of nothing happened, just delete it. You know, you got as much space as you need. So that's a big deal. But like you said, I have some guys that all they've done is just hunt, enjoy the moment, and I'm big on pictures. I'm big on getting a quality picture of a harvest or just a memory, but sometimes you get so caught up in the moment that it's hard to slow down. You know, I lived in Florida last year and got to hunt there and was able to harvest a deer, and I told myself, just slow, you don't have to be anywhere. Enjoy the moment, sit there, get the photos you need, get the video you need to be able to really capture that moment and be able to look back and remember everything. So just slow it down sometimes is also another thing I'd tell anybody who's filming.
Absolutely. I will interject some. If you guys are looking for like really, we'll talk about this on a later episode too, like recommendations, but if you're looking for like really technical, high-end tips, I recommend the Hunting Public guys. Prior to this hunting season, they had kind of a series where they went through and like documented how they train their interns. And obviously their interns aren't there to hunt, their interns are there to film. And so you can get a lot of really good pointers from them on some filming tips. For instance, like when Ben was doing the spot and stock with his son, I watched an episode with the Hunting Public where they were going over the tips with their intern on how they would approach that scenario and where the cameraman should be and all that stuff. And if you're really into the technical camera gear, stuff like that, I don't know if Matthew is or not, but I'm not.
I didn't even know they made that video. So I'm actually going to have to go check that out tonight or tomorrow.
They make a bunch. So, you know, Greg, the guy that basically runs the deal as far as like the Woodsman's Productions and then THP, like he is by far probably the most technical person on the show, I would say, or at least he does the most technical talking.
Yeah, I'd say the same.
And they have an episode where he goes over his camera gear and they go through every detail, you know, like their sensor size and their this, that, and the other. And if you are watching this series for that stuff, like I'm not going to be able to give that to you. Maybe Matthew will be able to give it to you, but I kind of get a good feel of like what a good camera is just by looking at the picture more or reading reviews. Like I don't really understand all that stuff. And the whole point of this is that you guys can know that you don't have to understand that stuff in order to do it. Which would then bring me to the last point or topic we wanted to cover for tonight, and that was well, I guess there's two more. First of all, why do you think other people should get into it? I'm going to start with Ben since he just got into it. Why do you think people should consider getting into self-filming if they're kind of on the fence on it?
Kind of three reasons that I personally are my top list. One is just to record the moment. I'm all about the experience. Just being able to look back on it, reflect it, share it with your friends, your young ones coming up when they start getting into the hunting and stuff or whatever it is. You know, they can look at it too and see what you did, or you know, just it's history. You know, and you can't replace it. Two was for the same reason I had that video we just put up today, is being able to look back on that moment. Like say, for instance, you shoot a deer and you look at the arrow arrow tells you everything that, everything looks great, but you go to find blood and there's no blood. Oh shoot, what do I do now? Because my arrow told me go look for that deer. But so I was able to look back on that footage and say, I need to give this some time before I go busting in the woods after this deer. The third is just the experience of it. Like I said, I'm at that evolution in my hunting career, I guess you could say, where it's not about shooting the animal at all. I am way past that. So just being able to get in there, interact with the animals and the outdoors, and just soak it all in, and get a whole different view of what the outdoors is.
Very good. Yeah. What about you, Matthew?
So for somebody, why should you do it? It's fun. I mean, it's really fun to me to be able to go out, capture something. You tell somebody about it, and they go, "Oh no, you didn't see that in the woods," and you can be like, "Yeah, I did. Look, I have video proof." And now with our society, it feels like also nobody believes it unless you have a video of it. And it's sad that it's come to that point, but a lot of people, it's hard to say, "Oh yeah, I saw a 12-point out there just running around chasing a doe." But if you have the video evidence to show it, you can make them shut up real quick. So that's one reason. But like I said, again, it's fun. I enjoy it. I have people that say they're interested in it that I never thought would be interested in watching a video that I've made, and it makes you feel good. And also to be what I've said most this whole time is it's good to look back on. You get to look back and see what you did and how you've grown. I can look back at some videos I did back in 18, even some in 16 that that's just on a hard drive, and see how far I've come as far as a hunter and a filmer. I try to look at myself as a hunter first and a filmer second, but a lot of times I find myself being a filmer first and a hunter second, which has come to bite me in the butt a couple times, but been able to capture some pretty cool stuff.
Absolutely. I would echo what these guys say. I mean, if you're considering it, give it a shot. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there. I mean, we've all got smartphones, I would say now. I wouldn't say, okay, maybe not everybody, but majority of people do. And there's all kinds of stuff out there for self-filmers just to use their phone, be it mounts or lenses or all kinds of different things just to record on your phone and then have those moments or whatever to reflect on or share or capture. There's tons of reasons to do it. I can't think of a lot of good reasons not to do it, honestly. For me, I went to a pretty exhaustive explanation on why I do it. One is to share and learn and let other people know, like, dude, last year I missed a giant, and it still haunts me to look at that video. And when I was editing that video, I mean, I was almost in tears editing that video and watching that over and over. I mean, I missed him twice. If anybody's watched the video, like, I missed him, and then he Houdini'd me at 42 yards somehow, and it's unreal. But to be able to watch that, one for me, so I can actually show, like Matthew was just saying, not, hey man, that giant buck that I was taking pictures of all year, and I told you I patterned and I knew what I was doing, I saw him last night and I missed him. Well, here's the video. I can show you, like, that dude was at 12 yards and I missed him, and it is the craziest. If you guys haven't watched it, you got to go watch it. Just fast forward to the kill shot attempt. The bowstring catches my collar and you can hear it rip, and the arrow goes out sideways and it does a sidewinder, and you can see the knock just spiraling. It actually does a sidewinder and hooks through his brisket and between his front legs and sticks in the ground beside him. as if it passed right through him. It's like the wildest thing I've ever seen. And of course, it had to nick his inner arm just enough to slice him, so he jumps a mile in the air. But anyway, so to have that memory, not just in my mind, but here it is on video, and I can share it. I can show it to the people that I told about that big deer for the 3 months leading up to that rut hunt, and then still show it now and be able to show it to the public and say, it happens, man. Like, when it happens to you, you're not the only person that's ever happened to. And here we're not afraid to show that. Obviously, the video that just came out today with Ben, like, we're not afraid to show that because that's the real thing. We want to be able to share that, and it's really hard to share that. If you watch the video with Ben, for instance, and watch him sitting on his porch and how he's talking about it, like, it looks like he just got kicked between the legs pretty hard, right? And so Ben writing a story about that. I'm not gonna lie,
I didn't want to share it.
Yeah, Ben writing a story about that, or telling you about it 2 weeks later, isn't going to have near that impact as actually watching it 4 hours after he shot the deer. And what it feels like. And I think mine was kind of the same when I came home that night and I did an exit interview in the truck. But being able to document that stuff that you'll never be able to recreate. If you have any interest in it, I think we'd all just encourage you to just get into it. You don't have to have a YouTube channel. For the friends of ours through Middle American Outdoors, I've had open invitation for anybody that wants to self-film some stuff, get a hold of me, get some clips. We'll get a story together. We'll get a video produced for you with your clips, and we'll get you started for sure. Just let us know if you have any questions. The last little topic then with the, we'll try to be done by 9 still. The last little topic would be, for those guys that are thinking about doing it, those guys or gals, sorry, for those folks that are thinking about doing it, what would be your number one, do this today, if you want to start self-filming right now? What do you think, Matthew?
So do this today. Absorb as much information as possible on YouTube. Be knowledgeable in the field. That was one thing when I jumped into it. I jumped into it not knowing exactly all the gear I needed or whatnot, and I'm sure we'll go over all that and you can follow along in this series. But there's plenty of stuff on YouTube as far as a primary camera, secondary camera, tree arm. That there's more to it than you think, but there's also a very simple aspect of it too. So just dive in, face first, and then just absorb. Be a sponge. Absorb everything you can. That would be my number one tip.
What about you, Ben? Your first year in, what would you say?
Do not be afraid to ask stupid questions.
Yes.
That little cord that goes from the mic to the mic jack, I still don't know what the heck the name of that thing is.
It's a cord.
But I mean, but seriously, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. So don't be afraid to ask. Come to us or go to Matt. I know Matt would be more than happy to answer your questions for you. There's genuine people out there, and that are more than happy to help you out and point you in the right direction. So ask questions. Absolutely ask questions.
Yes. I'll speak for me. I definitely answer questions. I'm sure Matthew would as well. I get the sense that they're about the same as us. Like, we're not here to build ourselves up on somebody else's back. We're really, this is it's a hobby, and we enjoy sharing it. Middle American Outdoors, we've made it clear our passion is getting people into the outdoors to keep the traditions alive in whatever realm that's going to be. If, I see Brexton's on here making comments. If Brexton or one of his buddies, Brexton is Ben's son, if Brexton or one of his buddies asks a comment, ask a question, and we give them an answer, and they go and create Brexton's Outdoors, and it's phenomenal, and they're monetized, and they're just rolling in it, I'll be so happy for that person, honest to God, because we're not in this to make money. That's not our primary goal, so it's not going to get in the way of We're not going to try to kneecap somebody just to keep them from having the success that we're having or whatever. And I'm sure the guys at Southern Pursuit are the same way. Yeah, like Ben said, just ask questions. The questions that Ben's asking, like about that 3.5 millimeter to 3.5 millimeter adapter, like I learned that by buying a ton of them on Amazon and figuring out which one actually worked and like made the sound right. A short story. I mean, my first hunt this year with the new Canon, there was terrible feedback when the deer were all around the tree. And I didn't know what the heck the deal was, and I somehow made acquaintance with the guy on his self-filming Facebook page, and I'm seeing if I can find his name while I'm on here. But he was just, dang it, I can't really find his name real quick, but I had a couple questions, and he spent the next 3 hours with me on Facebook Messenger, going back and forth on different settings on this monster camera that I have, that we eventually figured out that, you know, is the camera, the microphones were too hot. The shotgun microphone was too hot, and the wireless microphone was too hot. And we had different settings on the shotgun mic and different settings on the wireless mic and different settings on the camera here, there, and like 3 different places, going through all these different samples and changing this, changing that, changing this, changing that, all these variables until we get a good sound. And I kept running the video back past him. And so, long story short, there's people out there, believe it or not. Like, this guy spent 3 hours with me going over, he doesn't know me from Adam, and it's on his self-filmers page, where a lot of people obviously are out there making YouTube channels, etc. And I'm sure everybody would like to see their channel be successful, but there's people out there that aren't willing to sacrifice integrity, I would say, to make that happen. And just give people the benefit of the doubt, ask those questions assuming they will. But the last one then, if you're going to buy one piece of equipment to start tomorrow, what would you buy, Matthew?
A GoPro.
And what kind? Any specific or?
The 8.
The 8? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the 8,
Yeah.
but I want the 8. I've got the 5, and the audio is just not very good on it. And then I've heard some reviews from the newest 9 that just came out, some software issues that they're running into. And I've seen firsthand some 8 GoPro Hero 8 footage, and that's what I jump on to get that in a sportsman's mount. And you're good to go.
Bingo. Ben, what piece do you like the most starting out here?
That I have?
Yeah.
Tacticam.
Yeah.
But it has its limitations. Some pretty serious ones. But
yeah.
it's if you're just getting into it, and you don't know if you're gonna get serious about it. I've got some pretty good footage off of it, and the audio isn't horrible. If you're not gonna produce video and put it out there on YouTube or whatever, you're just wanting it for your own personal use. I think it's a viable option.
Definitely. And you're talking about like the 4?
Yeah, either the 4.0 or the 5.0.
Yeah.
I've had a couple solos, and they're okay. They're close range stuff. Like I use those for bow fishing. They work pretty good for that.
Yeah.
But if you're up in a tree stand, a deer at 20 yards, that sucker looks like it's out there at 50.
Makes you look like a good shot.
What's that?
Makes you look like a good shot when you produce it.
Yeah. But the 4.0 and the 5.0 are both pretty good cameras. I've been happy with them.
That piggybacks off of what Matthew was saying with the GoPros. If you are thinking about it, ask somebody that knows the cameras, honestly. Because yes, you can get a Tacticam Solo for pretty cheap, but a 4.0 is not much more expensive, and they're worlds apart on what they can do and features. And then the 5.0 is even... honestly, the 5.0 and the 4.0 aren't terribly different. The 5.0 has better zoom than the 4.0. But those are the kind of things that if you want to get into it, know that you can fairly cheaply, but ask questions first, because don't go buy that GoPro 5.0, that GoPro Hero 5. I also had Hero 5, and now Jake has it. And then the other one I had is laying in a field somewhere from camera work this year. So, but the 5, it does have some pretty bad audio compared to, I have a 7 now, and the 7 is phenomenal. And it also has 4K, I believe, on the 7. Just these small things. So you don't need to know about 4K versus 1080. You don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. But the difference between a Tacticam Solo and a Tacticam 4.0 is pretty significant. And that little bit of extra money is probably worth it. The difference between a Hero 5 and a Hero 7 or 8 is pretty significant. And that little bit of extra money is probably worth it so that you enjoy those first experiences with the camera. So if you are thinking about it, ask some questions. Any of us here or anybody that you know that might know. You don't need to go for the Hero 8 or 9, the highest dollar one, but you also don't want to go for the Hero 3 and hate it so much because it's such poor quality compared to what, it's not terrible quality, but if you're watching YouTube channels and getting this thought in your mind of this is what it's going to look like, and then you film and you're like, and you don't want to do it anymore because you didn't ask and you didn't spend that little bit of extra beneficial money. Those are the kind of things you just want to ask, like Ben said, to begin with. But let me look at my list. I think we covered it, right? Anybody got any parting shots, parting comments on the topic before we kick it, and then we'll be back on in a few weeks with the next part of the series?
I'm good. That sounded really good with y'all.
So I think the next time we talked about, we kind of hinted on it tonight. We kind of got into it. We'll go a little bit more in depth on the what you should be doing to prepare to start self-filming, as far as studying, how you should study YouTube channels, maybe who we would recommend studying, and then different ways of reviewing and learning gear probably prior to making those big purchases. But if you guys are thinking about it, go get a dang Tacticam or GoPro or cell phone mount. Even just get a cell phone mount and start using your cell phone, and then up it from there. If you watch my gear dump later this week, you're gonna get nauseated looking at the amount of gear that I carry and that I have. And batteries, I don't know if Matthew agrees, but as far as batteries, if you don't have 4, you don't have any. I mean, you gotta have so many batteries and so many backup power banks, and you don't need it to start, honestly, but after you get burned a couple times, I have a 47-pound backpack. That's all I'll say.
You'll build up your inventory.
Yes, but you don't need that. It's just, if you watch the gear dump, you'll get a good idea. Go over to Matthew's channel. He has goes over his gear, and you can see, just get a good idea of some of the stuff they're using at this point. Not that you need to go buy all of that gear before this weekend. If you're thinking about it, get something. Get a mount for your cell phone. Contact any of us, ask questions, and get started, guys. But anyway, thanks, Ben, for joining. Thanks, Matthew, for being here. Be probably a couple, 3 weeks. We'll talk and figure out when to get you back on again, as I think we're all kind of getting ready to go into rut season. But we'd like to keep these going over the next several months and allow people to listen and be getting ready to do it next year. So thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
See you guys later.